clear of the closing doors, please.
Subway Sports Talk. Pete Kennedy, Andrew Calagna. But we're not done yet. We're here to talk about a little Marvel action, Drew. We're here to talk about Deadpool and Wolverine and some announcements at San Diego Comic-Con that came out over the weekend. So a lot of exciting stuff in New York baseball. We also have exciting stuff in nerd culture, Drew. So when did you see Deadpool and Wolverine? Before we get into it about specifics of the film, because we'll do a little spoiler warning before we start about specifics. But when did you see it? And just give me the general vibe walking out of that theater, because I saw it on Monday. I'll go after you, though.
Yeah, I saw it Friday night. Saw it at a packed theater. Me and a couple buddies went, and it was great. There was kind of a buzz after, kind of walking out. It's one of those kind of rare things that only happens in those type of Marvel movies. Like, that wasn't happening after, I'm trying to insert whatever movie post Endgame. My feelings on Marvel after Endgame. I feel like it's been mediocre at best, kind of meandering what they're doing. Nothing. Kang was not a compelling villain. He's supposed to be this big bad variant, and then he got taken out by a bunch of ants in Quantumania. So the vibes were kind of terrible. So it was very refreshing to be able to walk out of a Marvel movie and just have that kind of buzz and kind of excitement to see what's kind of next. So, that's something that I haven't felt in literal years when it comes to the MCU.
And I agree to an extent. Obviously, if anyone's listened to any of our Marvel breakdowns over the past couple of years, I've been more positive than you, more positive than a lot. But obviously still have been understanding of the downfalls and some of the negatives and some of the misses by the MCU. But going into this movie theater, I was reminded of a few things, Drew. First thing was, and this actually started with the trailers. Actually, you know what? Let me say this first. Trailers at this movie, for me, I don't know if you had the same ones, were like outrageous because we had like Smile, and then I think it's called Trap, and then Beetlejuice. And Beetlejuice was like the lighthearted relief to these trailers. My Lord. I was sitting there with my buddies, two of them, one on the right, one on the left. And like, you get the trailer for Smile. You're like, Jesus Christ. Oh my God. I need to like take a walk right now. This is ridiculous. It's so loud in the IMAX theater. And then I'm like, this is intense. But then all of a sudden we get to Beetlejuice. I'm like, wow, this is the lighthearted relief. It's, even though it's still creepy, it's goofy. It is what it is. I wasn't like scared of it. Right. I'm like, all right, thank God. And then Captain America, the Brave New World trailer drops. And I was instantly reminded, Drew, that not everybody, in fact, most people are not so tapped in to this Marvel world that they're ruining things for themselves, right? You and I, our buddy Alec, who's not on the podcast right now, but our buddy Alec, we are locked in. We see a tweet and we're sharing it and we're talking about it. We watch a trailer and we see everything in that trailer and talk about it. We see the trailer again and we see another Easter egg in the trailer. And we know that the Red Hulk was coming before he was even in the trailer, right? And now I'm sitting in the movie theater and Red Hulk pops up on the trailer that's been out for weeks. And my theater on Monday, 4 days later, was like, oh. And I'm like, what? Yeah, this has been out. What are you guys getting so excited for? And then I reminded myself, oh, yeah, not everyone's a freak nerd like us, right? And then watching Deadpool and Wolverine, and there are things in the movie that were in trailers, widely expected, even if it wasn't in a trailer. And people are like, oh, my God, oh. Or they're laughing at a joke that we heard already twice in a trailer. And they're having a great time. And I really had this moment, Drew, and we're doing the thing that I'm about to criticize right now. We have all taken this world of MCU and nerd culture that we all love so much, and we've put in so much into it, and we have had now industry created around this world to a point where it's becoming a detriment to itself. And I'm part of it. I still kind of like it, though. I don't think it's ruined me yet, but it's ruined a lot of people, and I think it's actually to a point where it's crushed Marvel because all of a sudden the MCU has become that world where fans are saying, you know, it'd be really cool if we had a full 8-episode series about this one specific character who was in a movie for 9 minutes. And then we got that series and it sucked and we hated it. And we said, you know what? We just need some new stuff. Give us some new characters, Drew. And then we got new characters and we hated it. And we got new things and we said it's not good enough. And then we get an announcement of Robert Downey Jr. making his return as Doctor Doom in the MCU. And we hated it. So we got new stuff and we were like, this is not great. And I shouldn't say we hated it because I think a lot of people are excited about it, even if it's weird still. But we got new stuff and we said, that's not good enough. Surprisingly mixed, right? So we got new stuff and a lot of people say the new stuff's not good enough. We get a flashback of the old guard, if you will, and we say, what are we doing? The same thing we used to do? So we can't get out of our own way as Marvel fans. But what Deadpool and Wolverine did was take that and say, you don't even need to get in your own way. Just come here, come hang out with us, come have fun, laugh at a couple dick jokes, laugh at these good old-fashioned pop culture references, and look at this cool action. You're going to have fun. And I haven't heard one person really that I know in real life. I've heard critics on the other side, but most people I've talked to in real life, damn, I had a good ass time at the theater. And not everyone is saying we're back, Marvel's back, but they are saying I left Deadpool Wolverine and I had a great time at the theater. That was fun, funny, and cool. And boom, Deadpool, mic drop. That's what they do, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, and it gave you that, you know, if you've been following around Marvel since the beginning. So again, you're talking, they were pulling characters from 20, 25 years ago. Okay, they were pulling fantastic. They're pulling Johnny Storm. Spoilers. Sorry, we're getting the spoiler talk now. You're pulling Johnny Storm. You're getting Chris Evans.
Hold on. Spoiler warning. Say that again.
So you're getting Johnny Storm coming back. You're getting Chris Evans coming back, but not as Captain America, but as Johnny Storm showing up. And besides the point, did he always have a thick Boston accent that in those movies in the early 2000s? Because I don't think he did. I think it was just like him. I couldn't tell if he was
going for Boston or New York.
Yeah, it was very much his Boston Dunkin' Donuts commercial-esque kind of deal. Because I don't think he had that thick Boston accent in those movies. It was just kind of him just kind of hamming it up, which is more than fine. And it was a celebration of those characters that, like, you know, there were some good Marvel movies. I enjoyed the first Blade movie. I enjoyed, you know, you get to see the What If and the Gambit showing up. Channing Tatum is Gambit. Like, it was a celebration of the Marvel's kind of past, kind of forgotten past. So, you know, and it just made you feel, you know, again, those movies were goofy. Those movies were before the MCU, were pre-MCU. They were, you know, they were thought, this is what comic book movie was supposed to be. It's supposed to be goofy. It's supposed to not take itself so seriously. And it kind of just reminded you, you know, those movies might have been great, but they kind of held maybe a little bit of a special place, you know, inside you a little bit. And it was nice to be reminded of that. And it was nice to, you know, at the end of the movie, they're playing Time of Your Life with all the behind the scenes action from all the Fox, you know, stuff. And, you know, it's kind of a way to say, you know, kind of goodbye to that, you know, those Marvel movies at the same time. So, you know, you felt great about Deadpool, and it was nice to see Reynolds and the Hulk in his comic book accurate costume. And then you got reminded of all these movies that you saw as a kid and just a bunch of great action on top of it. It was just it was very much a feel-good movie. And, you know, you walked out of the theater saying again, hey, you know, people were saying, oh, the plot, it took too long for the plot to get going. The pacing, it had pacing issues. Like, I don't fucking care. Like, I don't go to a Deadpool movie to get a tight, you know, 110-minute film and, you know, exposition and plot. Like, I went to go see Deadpool and Wolverine to have a good time, and I did have a good time. So, mission accomplished in spades.
Right. Yeah, you said it perfectly. Another thing I was reminded of this week was I'm running a camp right now at the school that I work at, and I had a rising sixth grader in the camp, and we are talking, you know, about Marvel and whatnot, and we're talking about different movies and all these different things. And he goes, yeah, like I really loved Thor: Love and Thunder. And this kid's like 12, right? Like he's like 11 years
Mhm.
old. And he's like, yeah, I really love Thor: Love and Thunder. And it reminded me again, like the MCU started when I was starting high school. You were probably in
Mhm.
college or ending college, or
I
give or
wasn't.
take, right?
I
So
was. I was.
yeah, so like that's basically where we were in that time. I have great, beautiful memories of Fantastic Four, the first one with Chris Evans, Johnny Storm. I have great memories of that movie, even if it was bad. Right? It could be objectively a bad movie. I have good memories of it, and
Mhm.
that was another thing I was reminded of here. So the future of the MCU, very much still at large. I personally think the trailers for Brave New World look pretty good. I have this feeling that they're trying to get back to grounded stories, which I think is good. And we'll see what happens, right? We're not sure. The past 4 movies in a row have all been the savior. And another thing, this is more of a Marvel wide take. We can get into a specific Deadpool thing in a second here, but
Mhm.
Marvel wide take. All this stuff that we were just talking about all the podcasts and the YouTube breakdowns and the trailer breakdowns and the reporting and all this stuff that you and I are kind of following, it's also hurt us to the point that Marvel has ramped up their advertising to alter expectations. If you look at Multiverse of Madness, it was supposed to change the course of the MCU. It was supposed to break open this multiverse. It didn't. If you look at Ant-Man Quantumania, it was supposed to set up this big new villain that was going to change the course of Marvel history. It didn't. You're going to look at Marvel Jesus, aka Deadpool, and how now the new MCU is going to be set up after this movie. It didn't really do that, but none of the movies seemed interested in doing that, Drew. So the marketing for these films, the idea that Professor Xavier was teased to us before Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, and John Krasinski's Fantastic Four, Reed Richards was teased to us and we saw it. It made it not as exciting. And that's okay. It is what it is. However, we all go into the expectation of the film saying everything is going to be different after this one for like 4 out of the last 7 movies, right? Guardians kind of had its own thing going. Black Panther Wakanda Forever had its own thing going. But 4 out of the last 7 movies were supposed to change everything. And that's where it messed up. All those movies, if they were marketed as they actually were made, I think we all go in with different expectations and have different times leaving that theater, right? So another side of the Marvel stuff, and I don't know if you agree with any of this, is that we've really dug our own grave in setting up expectations to the nth degree. And now perhaps we're going to get to a different point, but then you get to RDJ as Victor Von Doom, and we blow expectations to a new level again. So I don't know if they've learned anything, actually.
Yeah, no, and that's that's the crazy thing too. You know, RDJ coming back, uh, it reeked of desperation, but in like the best way possible. If that makes sense, where if obviously, given whatever happened with Jonathan Majors off screen, and they decided to part ways, you kind of need to pivot. And again, I don't think he was that compelling of a villain to begin with. So you're looking for this. What kind of made the beginning of the MCU so great was saying, "Hey, they're building to something," and that was my biggest gripe with the MCU post Endgame is what are they building to? We were getting these individual side stories. We were getting, you know, television shows of vastly of different qualities of where we've had varying arguments in the group chat on the degrees of the quality of those shows. So
Well,
like, and
you
it
have
all just
Loki
felt
that stands up. You have Loki that stands up with the best shows on television, and then you have She-Hulk, which hardly stands up.
yeah,
Right?
and like
Vastly
I
different.
like vastly different tones and vastly like I get it. They wanted to do some character pieces, but it needed that was the DNA of the MCU. That is what got people so excited because it was building to something. It was building to the Infinity Gauntlet. It was building to Thanos. It was building on something. And then again, post Endgame, where you're down your 2 biggest stars in Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr., and you're trying to introduce these, you're basically throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what kind of sticks, and that's just not the way to kind of keep people engaged with the MCU at all. Like you need to have a direction. It was my biggest gripe with Star Wars too. They tried to do the same thing. They said, okay, we're going to make a sequel movie, and then we're going to pass it on to another director, and they're going to do whatever they want to do, and they're going to pass it on, and hopefully we have this cohesive mess, something, we have some kind of cohesive story at the end of the day, and it just didn't work. It didn't work in Star Wars, and it's not going to work, and it didn't work post Endgame MCU. But now that you know that Robert Downey Jr. is on the other kind of side of it, you now need to manage your expectations. Okay, how are they going to build to this? What storytelling are they going to get us to 2026, which is a lot sooner. I know you said that in the group chat. Is a lot sooner than people realize. You're less than 2 years away now from seeing Robert Downey Jr. and Doctor Doom on the screen. So how they pull it off, if he's a Tony Stark variant, or he's just he just happens to look like Tony Stark, or if he doesn't take off the mask, we'll see how they play it. But it just finally feels like they're building to something that's exciting and that's epic and that's going to draw people back into the MCU.
Yeah, and I think we could see him sooner. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if we saw him in some minor capacity or post-credit scene in Fantastic Four, right? Because obviously Doom, originally a Fantastic Four villain, largely looked at, as I say it, look right behind me if you're watching on YouTube. This little Doom painting has been behind me for maybe 2 years now. Shout out my boy James Morales, who hand-painted that thing. But Doom is largely looked at as one of the best villains of comic book history, right? So this is a big deal. He's been fumbled before, right? He's had 2 film attempts, 2 fumbles for Doctor Doom. Joe Russo or Anthony, I forget which one said it. The Russo brothers are also back, which is a part of this as well, where they've done pretty much all good stuff so far in the MCU, but people are kind of like, oh, do they need to be back? I don't know. Maybe it feels good. Maybe it feels bad. I don't know. But they did say Victor Von Doom. They didn't say Doctor Doom, which they could have easily said. And there are these storylines that I'm not largely familiar with, but I've heard about since, where Tony Stark has become Doctor Doom, or the Tony Stark variant is Victor Von Doom, or is Reed Richards' opposition in various storylines. Like, there's a multitude of storylines that happened in the comics that have this situation. So we'll see what happens. I mean, realistically, I think at minimum, this does for the MCU fans, maybe like yourself, who are teetering. You might say, I mean, granted, I know you're probably going to stay locked in for at least the big stuff, generally speaking, and Fantastic Four and all that. But like, you're now interested. You kind of have to see what's going to happen here. This is one of those things where they're like the Yankees. The MCU is like the Yankees, Drew. They're getting into the playoffs right now, and we'll see how they perform when they get there. They're in the playoffs right now, and somehow they're still alive. But we'll see what happens when they get to the big games.
Yeah. I couldn't say any better. So, again, it reeks of desperation in the best way possible, where it gets people excited again. Robert Downey Jr., you get the good vibes of, RDJ's coming back after you just saw Chris Evans in, in Deadpool and Wolverine. So you say you got your kind of dopamine hit of nostalgia for the pre-Endgame MCU, and now you're, it's kind of just getting that feeling back again of excitement and building back up to hopefully something that can live up to those expectations, which I really don't know how you can, again, in a post-Endgame world after what you saw in Endgame. And Secret Wars is, and they kind of, I think the only negative part of a lot of this multiverse storytelling is that you saw a lot of those hits already. You saw Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, you saw Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, you saw Elektra, you saw Hugh Jackman in the comic book accurate costume, you saw Johnny Storm back, you saw all these characters that you saw John Krasinski as Reed Richards too. You saw all these guys come back. And then it's like, what's kind of left for Secret Wars now? What's kind of, it's supposed to be all the multiverses converging into one whole new universe again. I've only read that comic book story like once, and that was like 10 years ago. So, they've kind of used up a lot of their tricks when it comes to that kind of storytelling. And I feel like a lot of people were waiting for RDJ to come back in that capacity for Secret Wars. So, they kind of ruined that surprise in a certain way, but I don't think you could have gotten people more excited, more interested than casting him as Von Doom. So it's kind of a double-edged sword there, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. So now before we say goodbye, Drew, hit me with these two things. First off, can you rank for me the upcoming properties of your excitement level? And that'll include Fantastic Four, Captain America, Brave New World, and Doomsday. Let's leave Secret Wars out of it, but Doomsday, Fantastic Four, Brave New World. Do you have an excitement ranking for those three?
I definitely think Captain America. I mean, I love Harrison. I'm a sucker for Harrison Ford, even though he got
He's
recast
109.
as yeah, that too. So I would probably put that one. I put Fantastic Four 2 to set it up, and then Doomsday kind of 3. Like, just it's not that I don't think Doomsday is going to be a worse. I think Doomsday is going to be the better film out of the three. But my interest right now is seeing how they set it up first before I get overly excited about something that's 2 years away. If that makes sense.
And that's fair because Doomsday kind of can't hit if the other things don't, right? So if the other things
Exactly.
are falling on their face, Doomsday's expectations are doomed, right? So that makes a lot of sense. I would put Fantastic Four first for me, though. I'm actually quite excited. I think the cast is coming together nicely. I'm a sucker for Pedro Pascal. I think him and Vanessa Kirby could have some awesome chemistry. And the four of them in that test footage, I mean, I saw some leaks of it online. It looked pretty damn good for test footage. Goddamn. I'm intrigued. I'm out here. So I'm looking at that. And now, last but not least, give me a rating for Deadpool and Wolverine. What do you want to do? 1 to 10 or 1 to 100?
I will go 1 to 10.
Hit me.
I'd give it a 9.1 out of 10. I definitely put it in. Would you consider it an MCU film? Do you count that, or do you count that separately? Do you still count that as a Fox? Call it MCU film? I'd probably put it in my.
I'm fine
top
calling
10
it MCU.
MCU. Yeah, I put it in my top 10 MCU films. Again, I haven't seen a couple of the more recent ones, but it's none of those films are breaking
outside of Guardians
anything.
3. I don't think any of them are making that. Yeah, I don't think they're making the case outside of Guardians 3 for the top 10. I had it at a 8 out of 10 to do a whole number, but my more specific ranking was a strong 78 out of 100, which I told you is equivalent to a weak 82. And that just comes back to the idea of, and again, 8 out of 10, great score for me. 78 out of 100, it's a good score for me. I really enjoyed myself in there. Obviously, there were some issues with the film where we talked about some of that before, plot holes. The hundreds of Deadpools didn't kind of do it for me. That felt a little silly and whatnot, but the action was cool. Stabby, snick, whatever. It's all cool. I had a great time, but I'm calling it a 78 or an 8 out of 10 to make it a whole number. And yeah, it doesn't crack my top 10, but it's close, man. It's close. I had a really good time watching that movie, and it makes me feel good about generally going to the theaters to watch these movies and continuing to have a good time and talking about it and just thinking about all this stuff. So I'm here for it. Here for it all.
Did you get one of the popcorn buckets with the mouth open? Did they have those at your theater? No, they didn't have mine at my AMC either.
I kind of forgot about it.
I don't know if that was an AMC. Yeah. Like I usually go to an AMC. I don't know if that was like an exclusive somewhere else. But I was going into it. I was like, am I gonna spend $40 on a mouth popcorn bucket? But I was excited about it. I was seriously debating, but it wasn't available, so I didn't even have the option to do that. So, but yeah. Sorry you didn't get one either.
Yeah, what are you going to do? All right, well, Drew, this is good stuff. This is good MCUing with you and talking some shop on the movie front. For anyone on the podcast app, if you didn't hear it, go check out our Mets and Yankees talk from the day before. Anyone on Radio Garden State, thanks for listening. You just heard the whole dang show. But don't forget to subscribe, rate, review on your podcast app or on YouTube. All those likes and comments, man, they all go such a long way. We appreciate it so much. Gets the word out there. And also on social media. At Subway Sports Talk. Shout out to all the people who are constantly supporting the social media stuff. I see you guys out there liking and commenting and whatnot. And the more the merrier, man. If you have a take, if you have a shout out, if you have an emoji to drop on a silly old TikTok or Instagram, it means a lot to me. So don't forget to do all that stuff too. That's all we got. Subway Sports Talk. Andrew Calagna, Pete Kennedy. We'll be back soon with more content as always. That's it. Cheers.
See ya.